a performer. So I used to tour the world internationally as a singer and a dancer. And every time I walked into the rehearsal room, I always got center stage spot. Now, if you know anything about performing, has anyone ever performed before? You can just raise your hand digitally. Anyone ever been a performer singing? Okay, cool. I see some interaction. So if you know anything about performing, you know that center stage is the place to be. They call it the diva spotlight, okay? but here's the thing that's really interesting. I was never ever the best singer. So there were always 3 or 4 individuals that were technically more advanced than me that can sing me out of the water. They had a 3.5 octave range. I had a 2.5 octave range. They had parents that were celebrities that were singing their entire life. And I sang in my garage growing up. And yet I still got that center stage spot. And they would come up to me and they would say, Netta, how do I stand where you stand? How do I get that spot? And I used to say, you know, everything you need is already inside of you. The only difference between you and I is that I show up as if I deserve to stand in that spot. The power of my presence, I was very cognizant of. Now, for about 8 years, I'm 27 years old, and I become the executive of an education corporation. I had 200 team members underneath my leadership at the time. And the number one thing that I constantly saw amongst my team was these amazing professionals that had PhDs, master's degrees, certifications, all the credentials that they needed were still getting in their own way, struggling with self-doubt, self-sabotage, had a really difficult time communicating and leading their team, but they had all the technical skill. But yet they still felt perfectionist mindset, imposter syndrome, not enough, and a bunch of chatter going on in their mind that held them back. Has anyone ever had that thought before, even though you have all the skills that you need? Yep. I saw a bunch of hands just jump up. You're not alone, okay? So I started to ask myself, because as an executive, I was spending more time supporting the team on these critical skills, on just feeling enough and realizing that when I give feedback, or when the CEO gives feedback, that doesn't mean that you're not good enough, but we're giving feedback about the thing and not about you. I spent more time coaching and mentoring around making sure that people felt valued and good versus, you know, growing and scaling the organization and the company. Now, today, my team and I, Rise Up For You, which you heard just a little bit about. So I actually run a company. I love keynote speaking, but I am a CEO of an organization. We're in over 50 countries with our programming and clientele. And today we work with organizations and leaders to help enhance company culture, build performance and leadership through soft skills, right? So the emotional and social intelligence, the communication, how to manage your team. And would you believe me if I told you that the number one challenge every single year, my team and I, we ask thousands, not hundreds, thousands of professionals that we work with what their number one challenge is. 83% of working professionals say self-confidence. 83%. So I want you to think about that for a second, okay? Some of you might lead a team. Some of you have leaders, obviously, that are leading and guiding you. With 83% of the workforce that struggles with self-confidence, how do you think the workforce and even your personal life would change if you had just 10 or 15% more confidence? Would leadership communicate differently? Would you communicate to your team differently? Would you be able to receive feedback differently? Would your team be able to receive feedback differently? Would you be able to hop on the call, raise your hand in a meeting, not be afraid to walk into a meeting and have a conscious conversation? What would change if even just 10 to 15% of us today had a little bit more confidence? Now imagine that only 17% of the workforce really have the confidence that we need to not sabotage ourselves. Now, I always say that this is not your fault, because we grew up in a society. Okay, and this is a global challenge, by the way. So I speak all over the world, overseas, in Canada, Dubai, MENA region, you name it. And it's the same thing that we see. We have been taught growing up to build confidence in what I call micro level confidence. So I talk about this in my book. We've been taught to build confidence in categories, competencies, or things. So think about this. When you go to school, K through 12, okay, you get taught to get good grades in math, science, PE, whatever it is, you get taught to get good grades in a certain subject, right? Then you graduate from high school. And then you go on and you get a certification, you get a degree, and now you're getting a GPA and accolades and good grades in this subject, in this skill. This is what we call micro level confidence. The challenge with micro level confidence is that all of those things exist outside of you. They're external factors. And anything that exists outside of you inevitably can and will change. And this is what we saw during COVID. So we had professionals all over the world that came to us and said, I used to be a top leader. I used to run my own business. You know, I have this degree. It's no longer needed. Who am I? What's my value in the world? And why do I exist? Because their entire life, they have built their identity based off of these micro level confidences. And when those things went away and when they fell apart, they no longer knew who they were, because the whole time they didn't understand or learn how to build macro level confidence, which is an inner belief that you are enough simply because you exist, which is a growth mindset, which is an understanding that failure is research towards success. I mean, think about scientists. They spend their entire life failing. That's part of being a scientist, right? And every time they fail or they don't find the equation, they recognize that this is research towards success, right? Okay, I failed, this didn't work. Now I know what not to do. And they get closer and closer and closer. Imagine if we all thought of ourselves as scientists. And when we fail or when we make a mistake or when something doesn't go right, instead of beating ourselves up and not thinking that we're good enough, we use that and we put it in the research category of what we're not going to do next time. Macro self-confidence is understanding that perfectionism prevents you from your potential. I'm going to say that again. Perfectionism prevents you from your potential. How many of us, and you don't have to raise your hand, but I want you to think about it. How many times have you wanted to do something and you've thought, well, I'm just not ready. I'm not ready to do that yet. I think I need more time. Right? And you stop yourself from taking the action or from moving forward because you don't think you're ready. Actually, when I was an executive, after about 5 years, I resigned from the company to go on to another opportunity, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And I decided to give my executive position to one of the team members. I didn't need to hire externally. I already knew internally who I wanted to give the job to, okay? It was a $45,000 pay raise, and they would have gone from like middle management straight up to an executive role, okay? When I went up to this individual, who was a woman, by the way, they turned me down. And the response was, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready. And I'm the executive who's hiring the role that's saying, oh, you're ready. You're ready. And they denied the opportunity. And instead, the opportunity went externally out to a man that came into the organization that never worked for the company before. And they lost that opportunity because they didn't think they were ready, even though the person that's hiring, the person that is actually being replaced said, yes, you are. Okay. But the challenge is that we're never taught macro level confidence. How many of us were taught confidence and emotional intelligence growing up in the school district? None of us, because we think it's common sense. And then we realize that as we get older, that common sense is actually not common, that it's a skill that we all have to build, right? It's a skill that we all have to build. So today, my intent for you as a speaker is to empower, is to help educate, but to give you tools so that you can actually execute, okay? Because your success is my success. When you walk off of this training in, 30 minutes from now, I want you to be able to use this in 3 months from now. It's not just about this 45-minute session. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. And I want to make sure that you can see it. So please give me a thumbs up. Can you see that? Just give me a quick thumbs up. Yep. Okay, perfect. Don't turn your cameras off though, because I could still see you on my end. Just because I'm sharing my screen doesn't mean I'm not seeing all your beautiful faces. Just so you know, as a speaker, anytime I speak virtually, I'm playing off of your energy still. So I'm watching you on the top of my screen. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Anna's with me. Christine's there. Yes, Ophelia. I hope you said your name right. Like I'm watching you so that I can play my energy towards you. Okay, so let's jump in. This is a great opportunity for if you have notes next to you or a pen or pencil, this is a great opportunity. So as I mentioned, most of us have micro level confidence, okay? We are confident in what we do. We're confident in our skill, okay? But I want you to think about this. If, God forbid, all of that went away, your skill went away, tomorrow artificial intelligence completely changed the game, and you had to get a whole new degree and completely start over, and your job wasn't relevant, who are you and what do you stand for? And would you be able to get back up without defining yourself by that circumstance? So our focus is to try to build macro level confidence, which is, again, the ability and the thought that you are enough simply because you exist, and the external factors, no matter what happens around you, your core and your self-confidence does not shift. So when somebody is providing feedback to you, it's not about you, it's about the thing, right? And I've experienced this myself. I have a team, you know, I've had team members where I will give them feedback on an email and they have a complete meltdown because in their brain, all they can hear is that they're not enough, because their confidence is shook, and their confidence, their self-confidence was never built. So instead of being able to say, okay, cool, I just have to redo the email, their mind says, well, I suck at this job. Why am I here? Like, I'm never going to be good enough. How many of us have experienced that with a team member, or maybe even just felt it ourselves? Yet I see hands going up. So our goal is to build that macro level confidence. And here's the secret. Macro level confidence helps you build micro level confidence. Okay. So the more macro you have, the more micro you can build. So I know I shared my screen here, but I want to stop sharing for a second because I want to tell you something that I think is important. When I was an executive, and I mentioned to this you a little bit earlier, I was there for about 5 years, and then I decided to resign from the company. Okay. And I decided to move out of the country for an opportunity. That opportunity was called marriage. Okay. And after 4 weeks of marriage, my ex-husband decided that he didn't want to be married anymore. And on the first day of our honeymoon, he said he wanted a divorce. Okay. Imagine. So I'm a high functioning executive, 6-figure salary, house on the lake, brand new car, boats, all this stuff. I got rid of all of that to move out of the country. And within 4 weeks, I'm getting a divorce, and I have $100 and 2 luggage. That's all I had. That was it. I got back on a plane. I was bawling. I was confused. I was embarrassed. I thought it was a joke. I thought somebody pulled a prank on me. I didn't tell anybody because I was so embarrassed. And all I can think is, how does a successful, educated woman end up in this position? Has anyone ever had that thought before? Like, how the heck did I get here? So I'm crying on the plane, and I'm bawling and I'm bawling and I'm bawling. And I fall asleep. And my father comes to me in my dream. My father passed away when I was 27 years old. So my father passed away before I became an executive, before I built this company. He's only ever seen me on stage as a singer and a dancer. He came to me in my dream and he said, Netta, everything you need is already inside of you. You just rise up for you. Now, if you heard Tanya do the bio, the company I built was Rise Up For You. If you see the book in the background, it's a little bit far, it's Rise Up For You. So I just started building Rise Up For You. I had no idea what I was doing. I only had $100. I've never built a business in my life. My background is in executive leadership. I don't have a degree in business. And I just started building. 4 months later, my second parent, my mother, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer out of nowhere. I built my company out of a hospital. I took showers at the 24-hour fitness. I would go back to the Hoag Hospital, open up my laptop. How do you build a business? What do people need in the world? Who's Tony Robbins? I had no idea about any of this stuff. 9 months later, my mother passed away. I found myself at 31 years old with a broken heart, no money, tons of stress, and both parents had passed away, the 2 most important people in my life. Now, I share that story with you because today, Rise Up For You is in over 50 countries. I have an amazing team throughout North America, and we've worked with everything from Google down to local nonprofits, and we're a 7-figure business. And the reason why I'm sharing that is because that macro confidence that I'm talking about, the self-confidence within, is what got me to build the micro confidence to build something and continue to make an impact. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know what a podcast was. I didn't know anything, but that belief in myself, betting and believing in me, was the one constant thing that I had that allowed me to get back up and not define myself by the circumstance that was created. So today I'm going to share with you 5 strategies that you can implement. And I want you to know that these 5 strategies I didn't pull out of the air, that I actually use them on myself to grow, to become better, to build Rise Up for You. And now today we use the same blueprint around the world for professionals to get coaching and to elevate themselves in the way that they want. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen again. Give me another thumbs up. Can you see that? All right, fantastic. Okay, so I always say the sky is not the limit. It's the mind. The mind will trick you into thinking you're not good enough if you're not careful. Okay, because the mind has a number of thoughts. I mean, according to neuroscientists, we have anywhere between 6,000 to 12,000 thoughts a day. Over 85% of them are negative. 85%. That's like the natural condition of a human. And so we have to be really mindful and careful that every time we have a thought, that we don't necessarily believe that thought and take action off of that thought, okay? We want to be wise enough to filter and decipher which thoughts serve us and which ones are going to sabotage us. So here's what I want to do. We're going to start by assessing your confidence, okay? You're going to take your phone, you're going to scan this QR code, and it's going to take you into a confidence survey that's like 2 minutes. We're going to do this together. Now, the reason why we're doing this is not to make you feel bad about yourself, not to think that I want you to have self-compassion. The whole point of this exercise is to figure out where are you today so that we can move about 2 or 3%, okay, in the next 3 to 4 months, let's say by the end of the year. So whatever score you have today, it's okay. My goal is how do we take that score and grow it a few percentages before the end of the year, okay? Here's the same code. If you haven't had the opportunity to scan it, it's right here. And I'm going to go through the exercise with you. These are what we call the 9 elements of building self-confidence, okay? And again, this is the Rise Up For You Power Up Blueprint that we've created. These are the 9 things based off of research that impacts somebody's self-confidence and also tells us how confident somebody is when it comes to the self. What I want you to do is give yourself a 1 through 10. 10 being absolutely amazing. This is not a problem for me. 1 being danger zone, and then everything else in between. So the first category is self-talk, 1 through 10. Do you constantly put yourself down? Do you have negative self-talk? Are you constantly beating yourself up and criticizing yourself? Or are you your number 1 cheerleader? Are you having kind conversations with yourself? Are you coaching yourself and empowering yourself? 1 through 10. 10 being, yes, I'm awesome at that. I'm my number 1 cheerleader. 1 being danger zone. Okay. Next one is trusting your intuition. You know, that feeling that's in your stomach that tells you, maybe I shouldn't do that. Or I don't feel good about that. Do you ignore that and suppress it? Or do you allow yourself to feel it and then take the action off of it? How many of us have ignored our intuition and then later we say, darn it, I should not have ignored myself. I knew in my stomach that I should have done A, B, C, and D, but you ignored it because you didn't trust yourself. You went in the other direction. 1 through 10. Number 3 is taking risk. And I don't mean jumping out of an airplane. I'm not going to do that either. Okay. I mean taking risk when it comes to conscious conversations. One of the hardest things for people to do is have conversations that are uncomfortable. One of the number 1 fears is public speaking. But we know today that conscious conversation, effective communication, and being able to stand up and present are probably some of the top skills needed in the workforce today. Right? Because it's all about communication and your delivery and your message. So are you able to take risk when it comes to some of those things that make you feel really uncomfortable? We just had a client that came to us, and we're working with the entire company, by the way. And one of the clients that we're coaching came to us and said, can you ask my CEO what they think about me? They didn't want to have that conversation. They were afraid to take the risk and have the conversation. They were afraid that the conversation wouldn't go well. And we said, no, but we will coach you to have that conversation in a professional manner, even though you're going to be scared, even though it's going to be uncomfortable. The more you do it, the less risky it feels. Okay. Number 4, perfectionist mindset. So a 10 would be, I don't struggle with perfectionist mindset. Like, this isn't a problem for me. 1 would be danger zone, where you don't take action because everything has to be perfect. And I'm sure we're all familiar with the statistic by Hewlett and Packard, right? That men will apply for a job when they have 60% of the criteria, and women won't until they have 100%. So that's like a D- versus an A+ in our grading system. Okay. So again, 10 for perfectionist mindset is 10, not a problem for me. Even if it's not perfect, I'll still put it out there. I'll still take action. 1 is nope, I won't do it. Okay. Number 5 is setting healthy boundaries. And this tends to be a really big challenge for women in particular. Being able to say no, being able to say, thank you so much for thinking of me. Unfortunately, I just don't have the capacity. Being able to say, thank you so much for texting me. Right now, I'm with my family and my kids. I'll text you tomorrow back in the morning when I get back at work. Okay, now I understand there's some industries that can't allow for that. For example, if you're in the medical industry and you're on call, there's certain industries where, you have to have a little bit more wiggle room. But the majority of industries, if you text back tomorrow morning when you're back at work, it's okay, right? And it's not even setting healthy boundaries in the workplace. It's also setting healthy boundaries personally. How many of us have friends and family that completely suck the energy out of us? And when we hang out with them, when we leave, we just think, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, right? Because they bring a certain energy that's not serving or conducive towards you. Setting healthy boundaries is being able to say, hey, I love you. Obviously, I'm not going to cancel you out of my life. But in your mind, you know that you're going to minimize some of your interaction because it's not serving you. 1 through 10. Next is self-promotion. If I were to call on you right now, if I were to just to pick someone on this call and say, tell me what value you bring to the organization and why potentially you should climb the career ladder, would you be able to tell me? Would you be able to say, Netta, this is what I bring to the organization. This is the value that I bring. This is the ROI that I provided. Here's what makes me different. Self-promotion 1 through 10. Next is feeling enough. And this is what I call enoughism. I talk about this in my book. Oftentimes, as individuals, we continue to seek outside. We want to buy more things. We want to get more degrees. We keep trying to gather. But then at the end of the day, we still don't feel like we're enough. So the constant consumption contributes to not feeling enough because everything you need is already inside of you. I have seen this multiple times with some of our clients, in particular women. I once had a client that came to me that said, I had 3 PhDs. She has 3 PhDs. I'm still not climbing the career ladder. I think I'm going to go back and get another PhD. I'm like, honey, you don't need another PhD. You have 3 of them. Stop consuming content externally. It's not about what's out there. It's about what's in here. You have everything you need to do the job. What we need to figure out is why you're not growing in the job. And I can guarantee most of it is coming from internally, right? Either you're not raising your hand in a meeting, you're not able to communicate effectively, the lack of influence is there, the emotional and social intelligence, the ability to stand confidently and put yourself forward, more than probably are some of the challenges that we're seeing. Next is growth mindset. So do you live in the I can't, or do you live in the I can't, comma, right? I can't, period, or I can't, comma, but I'll figure it out. I can't, comma, but if you support me through this transition, I'll make it work. Where do you live? 1 through 10. And lastly is imposter syndrome. So you've gotten to this position in your life, you've gotten this new role, and in your mind, all you can think is, I don't think I'm good enough to be here. What if people find out that I'm a fraud? Like, I feel like I'm an imposter here, even though somebody put you there because they knew you deserved to be. 1 through 10. Okay. Now you should have gotten a score. So it should have whipped out a percentage. Okay. And what I want you to do next is you're going to go to this, let's see here. There we go. Okay, you're going to scan this QR code now. It's a new QR code, okay? You're going to scan this QR code and you're going to put your percentage, and it's anonymous, by the way. So there we go, great. And if you didn't get the QR code, it's right there in the bottom. You're going to scan that QR code and then you're going to input the result. And we're going to watch it grow live. Okay, here we go. We have about 42 people. We're going to wait. What I love about this app is at the bottom, it tells me how many people have done it. And we have about 100 on the call. So we're going to wait for all 100 of you. I believe in you.
Oh, what are we doing?
Okay, let's see. All right. And just as a reminder, as we are going through this, if you can make sure to keep yourself on mute, that would be fantastic. Okay, so we have about 51 people. We're going to keep going. Keep putting your results in. And if for any reason, if you decided to, write it out instead of doing it on the app, no problem. You're just going to add up your score and you're going to divide it by 90 and it'll give you a percentage. Okay, so maybe let's say if you had like a 75 points, divide 75 by 90, I think you get like around a 76-ish percentage. Okay, let's keep going. So we have about 53 people. I'll give you another few minutes. Let's try to get all 100 of you to interact in this. And again, don't worry about what the score is. It's not about, oh, that I have a low score. It's about me now showing you some strategies that are going to help you move your score at least 4 to 5% in the next few months. Okay. So as you can see right now, I mean, all of you can see this. As you can see that many individuals, it's right in alignment with what we discussed. Many individuals fall under the 70% mark, right? So out of the majority that are on the call, this is right in alignment with the statistics that I showed earlier, that I talked about earlier. One person has over 90%, 3 between 81 to 90, 2 between 71, 80%, and the majority of us are falling under the 70%, 60%, 50%. And the reason why I do this activity is 2 reasons of intent. 1, I want you to know where you are today so that we can grow. But 2, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's easy for me to talk about it. And in your mind, you might still think, yeah, but people don't think this. And it's like, nope, you're not alone. And the results always show that you're not alone. Last week, I did a keynote for over 1,000 people for the Los Angeles County, same results. 1,000 people, same results. Okay, so this is a problem. And this is why this is one of the first things that when we go into an organization, we tackle, because confidence impacts your capacity to communicate effectively. Self-confidence impacts your ability to lead. Self-confidence impacts your ability to take action. When we have certain beliefs and triggers in our mind, our behaviors are going to be dictated by our beliefs. And it's really important that as a leader, we can figure this piece out first so that we can lead our team without having any beliefs in our mind about not being good enough, because we're going to behave accordingly. We're going to get triggered accordingly. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'll send these results. Keep typing in your results, but I'm going to keep going. So here we go. What are the 5 C's to building confidence? Crush, clarify, create, choose, commit. Let's jump in. And what does this all mean? C number 1. Okay, first thing is this is like an entire masterclass and it's completely free. Okay, so if you want the whole thing, which is 4 hours, just text confidence to that phone number, and then it'll give you like the entire masterclass completely free and a downloadable workbook. Obviously, the keynote, we condense it into about 45 minutes. But if you want the entire masterclass, text confidence to that phone number, and then it'll unlock all the videos for you. And it's myself and some other team members. And then you can download worksheets as well. It's totally free. You don't have to pay a dime for it. Okay, C number 1, crush limiting beliefs. How many of us have children or were a child at one point? All of us, right? I hope you all rose your hand. The beautiful thing about children is that they are unstoppable. Okay, they say what they want, they do what they want, they have no fear in their mind. And it's not until they get a little bit older that people say, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? No. Sit back down. You don't have the right to do that or to act that way. And then guess what happens? They get older. You're now 20, 30, 40, 50, and all these beliefs and all of the negative thoughts that people put onto you, you have in a backpack with full of rocks and it's holding you back. So now you walk into the workplace and you feel like you're not good enough because you have this big backpack that's holding you back. You walk into a relationship, you feel like you're not good enough and it's holding you back. And year after year after year, you're sabotaging your success because all of these beliefs that were put onto you by other people who also struggled with self-confidence. I'm going to say that again. You're walking around with all of these beliefs that were put onto you by other people who also struggle with self-confidence. Because what do hurt people do? They hurt other people. What do people do that have fear? They put projection of fear onto other people. What do people do when they don't feel good enough? They make other people not feel good enough. It's a cyclical pattern that you have the power to break today. You have the power to break today. So the first exercise I want to do is called the 4B's to believing in you. Okay, here we go. You can write this down on a paper or you can screenshot this and do it a little bit later. All of us have a number of beliefs in our mind and a lot of them are limiting. A lot of them are limiting. So I want you to ask yourself, what's one limiting belief that you currently have that's getting in the way of your success? Just one. We'll start with one, okay? Now I want you to ask yourself, where is it coming from? What's the backstory of this belief? This belief came from somewhere. Now, some of you might be able to identify it right away, and some of you, it might take a week or two, and that's fine. But did it come from your childhood? Did it come from a former boss? Did it come from a relationship? Did it come from siblings? Did it come from an experience? Is it cultural? Where did this narrative come from? Okay. Number 3, which is probably the most important, and it requires a high self-awareness, a high emotional intelligence, is what's the behavior that it's causing. Okay. So if you feel like you're not respected as a leader because you're young, let's just say that's the limiting belief. Where does that come from? But what's the behavior that it's causing in you? I'll give you an example. When I was 27 years old, and as I mentioned, I had a team under me, I really did not like it when I was asked questions in the middle of a meeting. I thought that I was being negated, that people didn't trust me because I was the youngest executive. And I felt that when people raised hands and they questioned me, that they were showing that they didn't trust me and they were negating my authority. That's what I thought. That was my belief. That was all in my head. Nobody ever told that to me. Okay. But the behavior that I had was because I said so. I'm the executive, I'm the boss, I'm the one that's up in front of the room. And so you're going to do what I tell you to do. Now, does that really work? Does that behavior work? No. So instead of building like this culture with this team, they got fearful and then they stopped asking questions and they got resentful. And I had to fix that really fast. And thankfully I did. And it changed and we had a great culture. But that was my initial behavior. And then I had to ask myself, why am I behaving that way? Because I don't like that behavior. Well, it's because I think this, and this. Okay, is that a true story? Did somebody tell me that they're raising their hand because they want to make me look bad? Or could it be that they might just have a question and they're curious? And oftentimes people are resistant to change. And so when something changes, they want more information because they want certainty. See, 2 different levels. And then the 4th of the B is the breaking. How do I break this pattern so that it serves me versus sabotages me? Okay, so how do I break the limiting belief so that it doesn't continue to sabotage my success moving forward? All right, number 2, clarify your values. 76% of the workforce in America are disengaged. We know that from Gallup. They say another 70% of the workforce are disengaged and they leave their jobs because of leaders. But I'm going to challenge that because we're in the trenches every single day. We work with thousands of people every single day and we see what's happening. I will challenge that and say a number of people struggle in the workplace because they haven't clarified what they want in their life. They haven't clarified what their values are and they don't know what's in alignment with them because they haven't taken the time to figure it out. And so they put themselves in positions, they work for organizations, they chase titles. And when they get there, they realize that it's not a fit. But instead of leaving, they stay because it's safe, it's comfortable, and they need to put food on the table. Every time you disrespect yourself and you do something that doesn't feel right, you are slowly crushing your self-confidence. So you need to understand what is important for you, what are your values, and is everything that you do in life cohesive with that? Everything, not just work. This is not just about work. Okay, what are your values and is everything cohesive with that? Is your work cohesive with that? Is your relationship cohesive with that? Are your friends cohesive with that? Is your lifestyle cohesive with that? My top 3 most important things in life are God, number 1, faith. Number 2 is taking care of myself, my body, soul. And number 3 is family. Notice how I didn't say rise up for you? It's important to me, but it doesn't come over those 3 things. So everything that I do is in alignment with that. If I'm spending time with family on the weekend and I get a phone call or a text from a client, I say, hey, thanks so much. I'm with my family. I'll talk to you on Monday. I create those boundaries because I understand that my values are what drive success. And when you do the opposite, you slowly crush that confidence that's inside of you. So I quickly just want you to write down, what are your top 3 values and are you honoring them today? Top 3 values. Would you believe me if I told you that when I sit across from executives and I coach them and I say, okay, if we were to take away your job and we were to take away your title and we were to take away the company, we would take away all these things, who are you and what do you stand for? Most of my clients look at me and say, I don't know. Can you ask me again next week? Because they haven't taken the time to identify that. So what are your top 3 values and are you actually honoring them? Okay, I'll give you about, and you know what, let's put it in the chat because I'd be curious to see what some of you would say are your top 3 values. Okay, what are your top 3 values and are you honoring them every single day? Let's see who's gonna be the first one to type it in. Faith, family, fun. Love it. What else do we have? Thank you, Adriana. Faith, family, fun. What else? Top 3 values. Even if you have one, that's fine. Community, challenge, fun. Great. Top 3. Honesty, self-care. Love it, Jackie. Self, mind, body, soul. Family, professional role. Love it. Faith, family, community. Family, honesty. Family, faith, self, family, self-care. Fantastic. I'll be honest that I'm not honoring them daily. Thank you for being honest, Joy. Faith, family, community, family. Okay, great. So we're seeing a lot of faith, family, yourself. Okay, but now here's the question. Are you actually honoring that? Are you actually honoring that? So are you engaged with your family when you're with them? Or are you disengaged because you're still working even though you really don't need to be working? Are you taking care of yourself every single day? Are you getting some fitness in? Are you taking care of yourself nutritionally? Are you doing the things for your mind, body, and soul if self-care was one of your values? Are you setting healthy boundaries? So this is all an act of reflection, because when you when you go away from the values and the things that are important for you, over time, it doesn't feel good. And you might not realize that it doesn't feel good. You just wake up one morning and you say, I just feel unhappy, or I feel stuck, or I don't feel like fully in alignment or fully fulfilled. And that's because slowly you started to avoid the values that are important to you. And you started to go in another direction because you thought that was success. But you didn't take the time to clarify what success and what your values are. And so you started chasing things that you thought were important to you, but you realized they're not really important to me. So that's number 2, clarify what you want. Number 3, I would say probably one of my favorite is time. Okay. And I always say, if you don't know what you stand for and who you are, you're going to live a life of chasing, but never feeling enough. How many of us have chase? You got the role you wanted. You got the guy or the girl you wanted. You got the relationship you wanted. And then you get there and you think, I don't like, it's all right. I still don't feel like I'm successful. And then you chase, and you get there and you're like, I mean, it still doesn't feel like I've accomplished anything, right? So being able to identify what you want is going to be critical. Number 3 is create a life system. This is one of my favorite. And you can ask Pakinan because I talk about this all the time. Create a life system. Can anybody tell me how many hours there are in a week? Just type it in the chat really fast. How many hours are there in a week? How many hours are there in a week? 100, yes, Veronica. Thank you, Veronica. 168 hours in a week, okay? Now, let's pretend that you slept 8 hours a day. How many of us sleep 8 hours a day? Okay, let's just pretend. So 168 minus 56 hours is what? Anybody know? Anybody know? Okay, 112 hours. I'll help you out. So 112 hours are left in the week. Now, let's pretend that you worked, okay? Let's pretend that you worked another 62 hours a week. Let's pretend you worked 62 hours a week, which is over full time, okay? So what's 112 minus 62 hours? Anybody know? Yes, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Christine. 50 hours a week that you still have left over to do all the amazing things that you want to do, to spend with yourself, to spend with your family, to go out there and hang out with your friends and family, to build a little side hustle, 50 hours a week. You work 62 hours, you sleep for 56, and you still have 50 hours a week. How many of us don't know where our time is going? How many of us get through the week and we're like, what the heck just happened? What did I do this week? Okay. Now, I always say, I'm an entrepreneur. Obviously, I'm a business owner. I wear multiple hats, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I'm a leader, right? Like I'm doing all these things. And why is it that business owners, the largest organizations in the world, they have systems and they have calendars and they have processes for efficiency, to scale, and to build success? Why do they have that? But as human beings, we don't. Now, what would happen is if we ran our life the same way? What would happen if we say, okay, I'm going to manage and optimize my time. I'm going to put time with my friends and my family in the calendar. I'm going to create a system for life because I'm a firm believer that you can have it all if you create a system to have it all. I'm a firm believer. I work really, really, really hard. You can't build a business and not work hard and lead a team and do what we do here. And every single day I work out, I pray, I write in my journal, I spend time with my family, I spend time with my puppy, I travel the world. I mean, I do a ton of things and I never feel like I'm lacking in anything. But it's only because I've created a system. And to be honest, if I go a week without the system, like if I don't do it, I'm a hot mess. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing today? What's happening? And so every single Sunday, and I'll show you here, every single Sunday, I always say, like, don't be a content consumer, be a content activator. And every Sunday, what I do is I will take out my planner and I will plan my entire week starting from 6 a.m. till about 8 p.m. And I'll say, okay, from 6 to 9 is my time. It's when I work out, when I do my journal, meditate, do all the things that I told you. I get ready, I listen to a podcast, and I start working at 9 o'clock, okay? And then I work from 9 to 5, straight through. No disruptions. I have a lunch, but I'm like head in, like completely into it. And then at 5 o'clock, I stop working. And then I spend time with family, hang out with my dog. Maybe I might watch a little bit of Netflix. I like Middle Eastern soap operas. That's the thing that I like to watch every now and then. And that's what I do, on a daily basis. And then I put in, hey, like I want to go get a massage and I want to hang out with my friends and family on this night and do a date night. And all of those things I plan ahead of time. And so I don't lose anything. So some of us are parents here. We have a lot on our plate. Some of us have to take care of a sick parent. I understand that life can be very abundant, but I always say that busy blocks your blessings. Busy blocks your blessings. And so if you ever catch yourself saying that you're too busy, my question to you would be like, can you tell me one person who's not busy? Because everybody that I know has a lot going on, but busy is a mindset. And you can manage and optimize your time if you create that system. Okay, here we go. Number 4, my favorite, 4C, choose your personal counsel. How many of you have heard the quote that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? Right? And people carry energy with them. And that can really hurt your confidence. I remember when I first started building my business, I had a family member call me and they said, "What are you doing building a business? You're a former performer and you're a former executive. Stick to that. You have no right building a business." And I said, "Thank you so much. I love you. I'm going to hang up the phone right now because that's your belief, not mine." Click. And I hung up the phone. Why did I do that? Because I knew that if I didn't do that, that belief would have gotten into my mind. It would have impacted my self-confidence, and I potentially would not have built the business. I might have said, "Yeah, maybe they're right." I would have started doubting myself. I would have thought, okay, maybe I should just go back into education and do my own thing. But no, what did I do? I built a business where I'm educating every day, and every day I'm on stage on camera. So what I used to do, and I pulled it into building a business.
Let's see, hold on.
Right?
Trying to find
So
an
there's
ally.
5 people that we need. Okay, go ahead and write this down. And then just as a reminder, go ahead and mute yourself if you're not on.
I am on here.
Okay. All right. So there's five types of people that you need in your life. This is called your personal board of directors or your personal council. Number 1 is your cheerleader. This is the person that doesn't give you any feedback. You don't want no feedback. Just, "You are amazing. You got this. Don't forget where you came from and what you've been through and who you are." Doesn't that feel good? Okay, so when you're going through challenges, you call this person. This is my cousin Rima, right? I call Rima. Even I have doubts, right? And we all do. It's human nature. And she will be like, "Don't forget what you did. You grew a company with $100. You lost your parents. You went through all this. You're so resilient, Bob." And she'll just live. And I'm like, thank you. And then I get off the call and I'm like, "All right, let's do this." Okay, that's your cheerleader. Number 2 is your mentor. The mentor is somebody that they are where you want to be. Okay. So if you want to be in a certain role in a company, for me, it's, I want to be a certain size of a business. I want to grow my business to be, like a 9-figure company. I want to be the Google of learning and development, right? Like, we want to be the name that when people think about training and development and coaching, they think about Rise Up For You. So I have mentors that are way ahead of me in business, because I'm not going to go to somebody that hasn't built a business, nor am I going to go to somebody that's only built like a $200,000 business. I need to go to somebody that is already where I want to be. And that's the person that I'm going to ask for strategy and learn from and kind of shadow them. Okay. So who's your mentor? Number 3 is your connector. This is the person that's helping you make connections in whatever it is that you need. Okay. So let's have a little fun. Let's say you're single and you want to be connected to somebody. The connector is the person that keeps you top of mind. That's like, "You know what? I have someone for you." Okay. For me, obviously, it's in business. So we have a lot of connectors, like, let's say in the Chamber of Commerce, that will say, "Oh, I know that you have some change management. I'm going to connect you to Rise Up For You because they do a lot of training and development around that." So find your connectors and where you need them. Number 4 is my favorite, the constructive trustee. The constructive trustee is the individual that puts you in check when you aren't showing up as your best, but they do it in a way where you can receive the feedback, because we all have blind spots, meaning we all have days that aren't good, and we all do things that, aren't our best self. So the constructive trustee I use when I write emails. Sometimes I'll write a really feisty email and I think, I'm going to send it to my constructive trustee. And they will call me and they will say, "Don't you dare send that email." And I'm like, fair enough. I'm going to put it in draft. I'm not going to send it, because they're able to see some of the areas and blind spots that you have that you can't see in yourself. And the last is the advocate, also known as the ally. The advocate is the one, typically in the workplace, they're the most high risk. They're the ones that behind your back are talking you up in the best way possible. They're the ones that are saying, "Hey, that role that's coming up, I need you to take a look at Joy. Joy is amazing. The work that she's done within this organization, we cannot overlook. I highly recommend you talk to Joy for this role." Okay, that's what the advocate is doing. Okay, so this is build your personal counsel. And the last One. The last C is commit to you. Commit to you. I once interviewed a guy named John Assaraf, and he said this quote, and it really changed my life. He said, are you committed or are you just interested? Are you interested in being better? Are you interested in growing your confidence? Are you interested in building a life that you are proud of? Or are you actually committed? Because committed takes action. Interest is just a thought. Now, I'll be honest, because we do this every single day, I would say over 85% of individuals are interested. And that's why there's only a top percentage of people in the world that are truly successful, because they're committed. It's not because they're better than you. It's not because they have a skill set that you don't have. It's because they're committed to it. They're going to do whatever it takes, and they're going to take action to continuously grow themselves. It's not just an interest for them. So I want you to ask yourself, are you committed or are you just interested? And if you're only interested, why? And how do we get you to a committed? And what do you have to do to commit to yourself? What action steps? Absolutely, Terry. Commitment takes time, energy, focus, and action every single day, even when you don't want to. But you're committed to the growth. For me, I do this every single day because I'm committed to elevating the human condition. And I understand that I can't elevate anything if I don't elevate myself first. That's why every morning I take care of myself first. Imagine me being on camera and working with clients around the world every single day and not taking care of myself. It's not fair to you, right? Because then you're only getting like 50% of my energy. You're only getting 50% of like what I can do and what I can give to you. I always say that self-care is actually service. You know how they say self-care is selfish? Self-care is service. Because when you provide self-care and when you're committed to yourself, your ability to serve and your capacity to serve skyrockets on a whole new level. You know, I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. One of the things that we do as an organization is we help support youth that are in need, underprivileged youth. So my team and I, we've gone into jails. We've worked with kids and young girls that have committed murder, that have been trafficked, right? That are unfortunately under the influence, that are trying to detox. We're talking 15, 14, 16 years old. And I always think, what would have happened if maybe they just had one person in their life, maybe two people in their life, that instilled that self-confidence in them, that made them feel that they were enough, that helped them understand that they belonged, so that they can go and build a life that they were proud of. Just one. I always say the greatest tragedy is wasted human potential. Do not let that be your story. Thank you, everybody. If you text the phone number, and we could put it back in the chat, it will allow you to have a free coaching call. So if you want to ask a question or you want a little bit of coaching completely free, then just text that phone number, and then you can bring any questions to the team. And then also we have a ton of free resources. If you go to riseupforyou.com, we have a free podcast. We have 600 episodes. It's all completely free. Every single day we release videos on this content. So there's a ton of stuff that you can just access on a daily basis. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you, Tanya.